Awesome stuff. It is great having you around, Sabelo. Welcome aboard.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to having this conversation with you. And well done on everything that you're doing as well on your side, with your business and your partnership with your wife as well. Very inspiring, very, very inspiring indeed.
Yeah, I think the only thing to do is to do.
Actually,
Any other backup?
yes, once when I was still studying, one of my professors said a gravesite is basically filled with people who have had so many ideas that have not materialized. So we don't want to end up, at that place. Something should live after us.
That is true, man.
So, yeah.
Sabelo, and what do you do, Sabelo?
Hey, I'm a I'm a man of many things.
Right.
I'm a man of many things. I think first and foremost, I'm just a family person. I'm a husband to one wife.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with multiple wives. Come on, man.
No, of course. I just thought I should put it out there because the other one is also common.
Yeah. Cool.
So yes, I'm a husband to one amazing wife, and I'm a dad to 1.5 children. I don't know if that makes sense. You can figure that out for yourself.
Congratulations! I didn't know the second one coming.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you, man. COVID baby, ish,
Oh.
You know what happens when you are in lockdown? You just look at each other and you're like, okay, so what you want to do? And I'm a servant of God. I love going to church. I love the Lord. What else am I? I'm a runner. Love running.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm a health freak, because you should see the food that I eat. It doesn't correlate with my lifestyle of running. But I enjoy being, in the outdoors, just exercising, doing long distance running. It really helps me.
Speaking about the running part, you do marathons and things like that, comrades and what?
Hey, yeah, I've done 5 comrades. I was really hoping to do my 6th one this year.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are people who have done far more. I met a gentleman who is probably in his 60s now. He told me that he completed 21 marathons. 21 marathons.
These marathons, man. Let's talk about that.
I don't know. You know what? One thing that marathons or long distance running teaches, or endurance sports, is exactly that, endurance. When you feel like giving up, you sort of have to, you run with your mind. You keep going with your mind. Sure. Your body just follows what your mind keeps telling you. If your mind is the one, if your mind gives up, trust me, your body will give up. But if your mind says, no, keep going, your body will follow, So it's like the mind, if the mind is strong enough, it sort of dictates the actions that follow. So that's what I appreciate about endurance sports. It's painful.
So it's
nothing fun about it.
In your mind here, Sabelo, other than anything else.
Yeah, it's very psychological. I think about my career in general, be it music, be it property. I think once we get into the discussion, you'll see that running has played a pivotal role in helping me to develop a healthy mindset, because you're running 90 kilometers. By the time you get to not even halfway, you're finished. You are completely finished. The only thing that starts working then is your mindset, And I think all runners will agree, or all endurance sports, And the nice thing about running is that you are your only competition. So there's like 20,000 of us, and except for the guys that run in front, the top guys. Everyone else is just running for their own improvement, and they have their own records to beat, So it's a non-competitive sport. You compete with yourself, and that's why I really enjoy it. And it's also an opportunity to get to tour the country, You know, I mean, I've seen parts of the country that I would have never seen if it wasn't for running. You know, you run from one city to another, and you do the back routes, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know there was this part of Johannesburg. You know, so yeah, and you see all these properties, pun intended, you know, and and you're like, this is nice. I should invest here.
How you go out and look for opportunities, Sabelo, whilst you're running?
No, not really. But you know, it's something catches my mind, you know, as I run, and then I'm like, okay, I didn't know there was such and such a place here, you know, because there's so much to discover in places like Johannesburg. Because when we think of Johannesburg, for example, you just think of CBD, dirt, traffic, taxis. You know, there's so much about Johannesburg that is catching the eye, you know, so many beautiful locations, so many beautiful cafes, you know, shopping centers, buildings. And I mean, there is, in fact, a race that happens on the 24th of September every year, which is done by FNB. And it's called the Heritage Run. And you run around the city of Johannesburg. Now, a lot of people don't just visit the city of Johannesburg. And that's an opportunity where you get to see the beauty of Joburg CBD, the historic buildings, you know, that are otherwise hidden, that you don't normally get to see or experience, you know. So it's funny how it actually all comes together, you know. So yeah.
And where does the love of music, because I know that you're also an artist, so you do music. Where does that come in?
I think that's something that's probably the first thing that I am. You know, I'm a musician. I should have said that actually. So I should have said that first. But it's something that I grew up with. You know, I come from a very musical family. My dad was a choir conductor at church. Yeah, so he grew up in the church. Yeah, and he was just very much involved in music. But then professionally, he was a building inspector, which is very interesting for this topic here. He worked for the city of Johannesburg. Yeah, so music, yeah. So yeah, anyway, we're still on the music part, right? We'll go to that one.
Okay, yeah,
because there's a lot to discuss. So yeah, music. So then when I joined the University of Johannesburg, when I studied at the University of Johannesburg, I joined the university choir there. And that's where I really developed the love for singing, you know, and got exposure. I got to travel. If there's one thing that has made me travel the world, it's definitely music, you know, and I never had to pay a cent, you know. That's how many opportunities music has given me. So
where have you been? Where has music taken you?
Sure, all over the world, to the US, to many parts of Europe, Germany, Italy, France. I've been to India. Wow. Yeah, I've been to Russia. You know. Yeah,
what do you
London.
do?
So I've got two streams. I'm in two streams. So firstly, I'm a jazz singer. I released an album many years ago in 2013, and that album did quite well, and that's the album that took me to India and the UK. And I was fortunate to perform there. And then I'm also a choir conductor. I'm a choir singer and a choir conductor, but officially a choir conductor now for a choir called Quaver Vocal Group. We are a classical jazz African choir. And yeah, so when I travel, it's usually with choirs or as to attend a choral workshop or a music workshop. So there's many different reasons I get to travel and to perform. Yeah.
And yeah. Where does property then come in? Because I know you also do property investments, and we've had many a lengthier conversation around property.
And yeah.
And I didn't know about your dad, about him being an inspector, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So I think we can start there. He was mainly the inspiration, I think my dad had an idea. So he had 6 of us, and he used to be, well, he started off as a builder, right? As a construction worker.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, I mean, in the 60s, 70s, that's basically what you could do as a black person. If you've done very well for yourself, then you're a teacher or a nurse or a traffic cop or police. But my dad was he got into the construction field as a construction worker, and then he worked his way up. He sort of studied and eventually joined the Soweto Council, Building Council, where they basically started, inspecting and making sure that building regulations are followed. And it's quite interesting because it's very different to what it is nowadays. Back in those days, like building was a serious affair. Construction was a serious affair. You can't just erect a building without following, all the procedures. So he was responsible for that, and then he went on to study architectural design, and he started, doing architectural work for a lot of people in Soweto. He founded his business, which he ran on the side, and then he taught my mother how to do architectural design, and together they pursued that. And I mean, if you go to Soweto and you ask about Mr. Aaron Mthembu, a lot of people know him because most of the houses that are there were designed and built by him. Obviously not the 4-room houses, but the extensions, the bigger houses. So he was quite instrumental there. And then he sort of inspired us to go into construction. My sister ended up as a civil engineer.
Yeah.
She was the first graduate in my family. And my other sister my brother went into architectural design as well. And then my other sister went into real estate. Then my other sister went into interior design.
Okay.
And then and then my other sister went into quantity surveying.
All right.
So yeah, so I think by the time I left school, my dad was tired, because I was the last born. So he just let me choose whatever, and I decided to go into IT. So I'm a man of many things. I ended up going into IT because IT was very popular back then, and it was easy to get a job as an IT specialist. But for some reason, I still had the love for architecture. I still had the love for buildings, because with my dad, we were able to, go around and see buildings and see construction and be there when he does his construction projects, So I had that love, for building. And I decided that, what, I should really get into property one way or the other. So I started investing in property at a very small scale. I started acquiring flats in Hillbrow, Johannesburg CBD.
Yeah.
And then obviously, once your property portfolio grows, I sort of slowed down and focused more on helping other property owners manage their properties.
Right.
But this is something I've been doing on the side. So I manage commercial property, I manage residential property. So that's basically how I got into it, because it was so prevalent in my family. It almost became our culture. Property became our culture, and I sort of not necessarily towed the line, but I was inspired to be part of the fold, if that makes sense. So that's basically how I got into it.
So you speak of a neighborhood that a lot of people are scared of going into to invest.
Yeah.
When I say to people I'm investing in Yeoville, in and around Yeoville, people are like, and I ask the question, what's wrong? And they're scared. And there you are. I don't have anything in Hillbrow myself.
Yeah.
But that's almost like the pinnacle of where most people are scared. And there you are, you're investing in it. What are some of the challenges that you have faced in an area like Hillbrow? And I also want to then say, but what are the opportunities that are there? Because for me, you can't be successful if you're not challenged. You can't win without losing. You know, there's a yin yang into anything.
Yeah. So I think, well, firstly, I love the CBD. I love Johannesburg, you know, with all its challenges. It's got so much history. I used to come here, walk around and just take pictures of these amazing buildings, you know. But obviously over the years, we've... Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, I love architecture, because for me, buildings need to tell a story. You know, it's not just a block. You know what I mean? And that's what I love. I love the history. I see Johannesburg in the future, if well managed, becoming the next New York. You know, unfortunately, the management of the city is not that great, and that poses most of the challenges. Then you have the issue of appreciation of property value in the CBD. It's not that great, and that's because... So I think we also had this conversation some time ago that, unfortunately, and because also they are a business, the banks sort of dictate to investors where they can and cannot invest. And they also, in a way, yes. And I guess it's also for them to protect their business, you know, in terms of returns, because they're not just borrowing you money. They need to see that there's going to be value. There's going to be appreciation of this value. What they're investing in or co-investing in is going to give them the right returns. And unfortunately, the absence of banks and their non-willingness of financial institutions to invest in the CBD has led to stagnant, or if none, of the appreciation of property value in the CBD. So that's one of the biggest challenge. If you invest in the CBD, do not think about appreciation, property value appreciation. You will not get it. I mean, I remember I bought a property in Braamfontein, you know, because there was the promise. This was before the Gautrain was built. This was before the World Cup, you know, and I looked at the prospects, and, you know, the way they sold it, they said, you know, there's going to be the Gautrain, and I mean, it's very close to the Gautrain station, to Park Station. There's the World Cup, there's universities and all of that. So, I mean, I bought it on those prospects, you know.
Sure.
But 10 years down the line, I had to sell that property at the same value, or rather the same buying price that I bought it, you know, at that time.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's where the opportunity is. I always say that if you want to invest in property, always invest at a price half what you qualify for.
Okay.
So if the bank says, you qualify for $1 million, buy for 500, because then that means you can reinvest more into that, and then pay off then make your amortization a little smaller. Then you can pay off the property quicker. That's what I did. The property that I bought in Yeoville, I was able to pay it off in less than 10 years because I bought it for 150, which was far less than what I could afford at that time.
Yeah.
And that meant that I had an asset to my name, which means then that I have more equity.
Yeah.
In my name, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I become the perfect candidate, you know, for someone who's looking for funding.
Don't run away from the word, man. You become rich.
Not really, but yeah.
You're rich in equity, and the
Yes.
banks are always looking for people that are rich in equity.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
to give them more money. We look
Yes.
at people that get more money from the bank, and we're always asking ourselves, how is that happening? They're just rich in equity. That's all. It's natural for the bank to hold on to something.
Exactly. And the best way you can accumulate your asset is to buy affordable assets.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's what has worked for me. I've always, because I think if I had to buy in a elite area like Sandton, it would not be the same, because then I would still be owing for that. You know, I'd be tied up in that. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, if you get a flat for like 250,000 in the CBD, obviously you have to look at the conditions of the building. If it's a livable place where you can live. And the nice thing about the Johannesburg CBD is that you can never run out of tenants. You know, there's always a demand. Yeah, there's always a demand. There's always a demand for living space in Johannesburg. Okay. You know, so that's one of the
challenges of investing in inner city, man?
I think it's just, you have to, the challenge is finding the right tenants.
Okay, so there's tenants.
Yeah, because
you just need to find the cream.
Yes, the tenants are there's many, but there are also crooks. You know what I mean? Yeah, there are crooks, and I think this is where my passion for property management came in, because I managed my own properties. One thing that I never did was to hand them over. Actually, I did that one mistake. I handed over my property to an agent.
Okay.
And this is not a managing agent. This is a sales agent who finds tenants.
Sure.
So remember, their mandate is to find a tenant.
Yeah.
Right? What happens after that is not part of what they do. So I had to sort of get involved from the word go. Make sure that I know who's coming into my property. I know where they stay, where I can find them if they run away. I've got all their details, and I know what's happening and I've got access to my property. You know, so those are things that a lot of property owners don't take into account. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of rich people who own properties in the CBD. You know,
yeah,
but they don't know what's happening. You know, they don't. As long as they're receiving their rent, they couldn't be bothered. You know, and they don't understand that as the trustees, you have to be sort of involved in what's happening in the building. Right. So yeah, so that's why I really became passionate about managing property, because I saw value in doing that. I mean, I've had a few incidents where you had, you know, tenants not behaving well and not paying their rent. Mm-hmm. But you know, when it was self-managed, it was better to take care of those situations. So yeah.
So my statement around that, Sabelo, is that when you decide to go and play with the crocodiles, when you decide to go and play with the lions, it is by nature that inherent they do bite.
Yes.
At some point, yes, you are going to be beaten.
Yes. In anything. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So that's the nature of real estate. It's inherent that we do have tenants that will be wanting to take advantage and all of those things. It's just the nature of people, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it's really bad. Yeah.
Gates needs to be tighter. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, also, I don't think owners realize how many rights they have as well. Which is something that, you know, one day we'll probably have to, you know, discuss. But owners have many rights. You know, there's always this issue that, oh, you can't kick people out of a building and so forth, you know. But the truth is, where there is a contract that was signed between the landlord and the tenant, when the terms that contract takes everything that happens.
Terms and
in that
conditions
contract.
apply.
Terms and conditions.
Yeah.
If you have failed and then this contract needs to be terminated, that's basically what it means, right? You have the right as the landlord to evict the tenant upon notice and recoup your money back through legal proceedings, of course, you know. So there's always this battle that, oh no, the constitution doesn't allow for people to be evicted, and that's for a different story. You know, that's a different story altogether, you know.
But Sabelo, if you're looking at properties like in the inner cities and you kind of like own the building, whether it's a 5-unit, 10-unit, 100-unit, when you start evicting people at mass numbers like that, a lot of it quickly turns into politically influenced and things like that.
Yeah.
Especially in the inner city. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of like try to shun away. And there you are finding opportunities in the area. I almost want to jump back to the opportunities because you dropped like easy numbers, man. 160, 250,000. That's how you are buying properties now. How easy is it to find such kind of properties? Are those realistic numbers?
Look, I mean, the numbers that I gave you, I mean, they're quite old, you know. But I mean, I think with 500,000, you could actually get a decent unit, a large size unit in the heart of CBD, of the CBD. You could get a beautiful flat with a beautiful view in Berea, for example. You know,
it wouldn't just have a beach, isn't it?
Sorry.
I said it wouldn't have a beach on it, right? Because you said it's a beautiful apartment.
No. No, I mean, it's a beautiful view of the wall of the apartment next to you. Just paint there. Sure. Just paint that spot and you've got a beautiful view. So I mean, I mean, for like 400,000, I was able to get a beautiful 1-bedroom flat in Kensington with a beautiful view, which was on the mountain. And, you know, so it's just, you have to look around. It's like shopping, you know, it's like shopping. You have to shop around and you have to negotiate well, understand why the owner is selling and play on that, you know, play on that. I mean, I was fortunate enough when I bought that flat in Kensington. It was an old man who needed to go to his family in Cape Town. He was moving. You know, it's a beautiful flat with a beautiful view. So for 500,000 rands, you can get something very. You can even get 2 flats, you know, small studio flats, and I mean those flats are quite huge. You know, the one thing that you need to be careful of, and here's the thing that a lot of sales agents do is, because obviously their mandate is to make a sale. They will rush you and tell you, you will never get a deal this good. They always rush you and they say, you will never get a deal like this. The first thing that you have to do is do your due diligence. Study the financials. Yeah, DD. Yeah. DD Mabuza. Do your do your studies. Do your study, do your due diligence. Check who's managing that property. How is the property doing? Because obviously when you come into that club, you're going to be affected either way, you know. So it's very important to do that. How are the rates in that property, you know?
I want to talk to something there because, you know, what you're talking about, it's actually the process of managing a property. And, you know, I'm always saying that buying a property, it's an event. It's got a start and a finish.
Yeah.
Managing, it's a process where you actually need to find ways to please your customer, to make sure that you're banking more money as time goes, to maintain the asset that is giving you some money. So there's a longer process there that you need to be taking. I can see the correlation of you enduring running and property long-term management. I can see the connection now.
No, it's absolutely stressful. Mainly because there's, you know, you're not just managing you're not just managing the building as, let's say, a group of trustees. If it was that easy, you could just come together as trustees and have rules and laws. But here you are dealing with bylaws of the city that only the city can enforce and manage, right? So issues of illegal dumping, illegal whatever, you have to have the city enforcing those rules.
Right.
Issues with incorrect billing. One of the biggest challenges,
You've
I mean,
just touched me on my
I'm sitting with that. No. It's absolutely stressful. You are also dealing with employees of the city who are, I wouldn't say disgruntled, but they're tired.
Some of them
yeah, they are, so you go there and you try to, not all of them.
There is some elements of bad apples.
Yes, you know what I mean? So those are some of the challenges that you deal with.
Sure.
And then when it comes to managing a property, let's say you're managing a commercial property, like I do in my case.
Yeah.
Then you have to manage egos of different tenants, which is a serious thing, because you've got people who are running their businesses, and at the end of the day, they want to make profit so that they can pay you, and you have to please them, because if they don't make profit, they can't pay you rent. Now you have those egos that you have to manage. This tenant doesn't get along with this tenant because he's blocking his view. No one can see his signage. You know what I mean? So it's quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge. You really need good leadership skills.
Right.
And you also need emotional intelligence as well.
Yeah.
You really need emotional intelligence, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's a journey. Buying, as you said, is an event. What happens between that and the end, however we decide the end, is what matters, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you really need to take into account the comfort of the people who are occupying the building, right?
Yes.
And also to respect and protect the property, and get the people who make the people who occupy the building understand that they are the stewards of the building, because buildings are historic.
That's a servanthood attitude in terms of doing your business. You're serving others, and I think me and you, we come from a great guy, Andre Olivier, who's always talking about saving. It's not just about money. It's more than that. And when you start serving other people, you start understanding who they are, and by understanding who they are, you can actually provide a good service to them.
Absolutely. I mean, serving people is the core of what we should be. Like you say, it's not about money. In fact, like Pastor Andre always says, that once you put your passion and your heart of service into it, the rest will follow. Recognition, money, returns, and all of that, those things will follow. If you base your business on, I can't remember who preached that. I think it was Pastor Mensa Otabil from Ghana. When he came and he said that if your focus is on a single thing, once that single thing is removed, then there's no purpose. So for example, if you get into a relationship because you want to have children, once the children are there, then there's no purpose for why you are in the relationship. So we have to,
becomes an object.
Exactly. So now you're focusing on the children. You don't care about the wife. You know what I mean? And I think that's how it should be in business. We need to have a bigger purpose, And for me, my purpose is really protecting the heritage of our city. That's what I always say in my business. We are the stewards of our city. We are the stewards of these buildings. You know, they tell a story. They need to be there. You know, what I would listen to like older people talk about how they used to walk at Joburg Park, for example, how there used to be Christmas carols at the park in the CBD. You know, unfortunately, because of poor stewardship, we can't experience those things, you know. Whereas,
what's your remembrance of what the inner city looked like from your childhood?
Ooh, I think I probably found, I grew up in an era, because I mean, I grew up in the 90s. That's where things really started to change. Sure. And I never visited the CBD, but one thing I do remember is that where at F&B, at the big F&B building,
yeah,
they used to have this massive Christmas tree, and sadly they don't have it anymore. And they would have Christmas carols around that tree. Wow. But obviously people don't want to come to the city anymore, so people don't really enjoy.
That's the area that they call the Bank City, isn't it?
Bank City, yes. I mean, they're really trying, and they're doing well in trying to transform it. Yeah. It looks really nice now. They've got beautiful cafes, yeah. And I mean, and the other thing,
Christmas carols at Bank City now.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And now it's really our responsibility to try and woo people in, you know. And I think a lot of companies and managing companies have tried. I mean, there was a company that was managing Newtown, for example. You know, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival used to happen in Newtown. I mean, Newtown was always buzzing with activity, you know. Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, things have changed, you know, because of mismanagement of the city, you know. So a lot of companies.
There is this big development that has come through, and I'm trying to find out who the developers are. I think it's that whole place close to Absa. They've turned it Jewel City or something like that.
Yes, Jewel City. Yes. And
that has come out beautifully.
It's lovely. It's really stunning. But there's also that part of me that is like, it's the CBD, you know, because we've seen projects of this kind happen, you know, in different areas. We've seen it in Maboneng. We've seen it in Newtown. You know, I really wish that we could see more of it, and we could see a lasting impact, you know, on projects like this.
Sabelo. Me and
it is exactly
opportunities and other like-minded people who
exactly
have a passion for the inner city.
Exactly. And I mean, we don't have to be property owners or property developers to show that passion. We can be artists. We can be people who love good food. We can be, you know, let's visit these places. Let's see them. Let's go out there and see it. Let's Uber if we're too scared to, you know, drive into the city, which is understandable, you know. Yeah. Let's Uber to the city, go there, enjoy, have a good time. And I mean, we see that with neighborhoods in Braamfontein, you know. So it's almost like things are happening, but not at the pace that they should be, you know. So there is hope.
It's almost like not at the right pace to completely transform the whole of town.
Absolutely, and it happens in pockets.
But it's too slow, so the transformation looks like it's really crawling rather than.
Yes, and it's almost like people will run to a place, they will flock a place, and then once that place is done, they will move on to another place. Like I was saying, I mean, Newtown used to be the place to go, you know, about 6-7 years ago, and then that ended, and then Maboneng became the place, and then that's on and off. And then Braamfontein is now becoming, you know, the place. I would like to see that spread equally, you know, across the city, and consistently so. So I think there's a lot of like-minded people who really want to see the city change, you know, because it's the one place in Johannesburg that is accessible to all people, all people of all races, all cultures. I mean, and which is part of the reason I really loved Yeoville. It was basically like being in the United States of Africa, you know, because you've got all these nationalities, you've got all these cultures, you've got all these restaurants,
huge.
the diversity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And equally so, there's the crime as well, you know, that needs to be addressed. I mean, there's crime in Maboneng. People get robbed, you know, in all those places. But people love to have a good time, you know, and I think that's why Maboneng is still standing. People love to have a good time, the good vibe, you know, and
these are the, should you not say that these are some of the teething problems of a city that had gone south? So it's coming back, but
yeah, it is.
It has come back. So obviously we're going to have some issues as we go along.
Yeah, no, I think it should. I mean, there's only so much that we as property developers and managers and investors can do.
Sure.
Everything really needs to start at council level, like basic management, like bylaw enforcement should not be a rocket. It should not be rocket science. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, let it be enforced. You know, let it be enforced properly. Let the billing process be fixed. Let the management of the city be run well. You know, I mean, we've got a very good, we're developing a very good transport network via the Ria Via. Yes. But also because of poor management, it's taking long. I mean, you know, to fully develop it. This project was supposed to be done in 5 to 6 years, but we see some stations.
Project, the 2010 project?
We are here now. We are here. They are still building in Alex. You know what I mean? This thing was, we don't need cars. You know, we don't need cars. I use the Ria Via. I have a car, but sometimes I just park my car and I use the Ria Via, you know, because it's convenient. You know,
your music takes you to so many places where you appreciate some of these things.
Exactly.
And
that's what, you know what?
Still scared.
I really wish for everyone to go to London, to go to New York, to go to these places where you can be in the city and use public transport. Obviously, things are different in South Africa, you know. I mean, then again, we also exaggerate. I mean, it's not that dangerous, you know. Taking the Ria Via, I've never had any issues or incidents. Yes, it's done. Now and again, it's slow, you know. It's not as efficient as it should be, but it works. You know, it works. And it's a very, very safe way to travel and comfortable too, you know.
I like the way you think, Sabelo. So it's at a global level, you know, it's not at a local level. And I think your passion is more around let's get stuff working. And you doing your part in your properties that you own, in properties that you are managing, which is great. But I want to conclude off the conversation, Sabelo. You're an artist, and it's unfair of me to let you go without giving us a chorus or a song or something.
How did I know this was coming? I knew this was coming. Eh?
The floor is yours for the next 2 minutes. Give it to us.
2 minutes is too long. I'll give you 30 seconds, and then the rest you can find on my what do you call them? Social media pages.
Sabelo's music will be in the comments below. All you need to do is click on it, and you'll be able to buy of what we are going to receive now. You should.
But before I shoot, how for me, why arts and property are so close. If you go around the world, you see some of the greatest buildings are like theaters. Some of the greatest buildings are like music halls. If you go to London, the Royal Albert Hall, one of the best architecture, you know, it's a music hall. If you go to France, you know, if you go to Paris, the School of Arts there, it's a huge building right in the city center. So buildings, buildings and art, you know, there was an era where being an artist was a really respected profession, you know, and a lot of money was invested. Yeah. Not anymore. We'll talk offline about that.
All right, let's shoot on your
But yeah.
song.
All right, so this song is called Angiphili Maungekho. It comes from my album called Songs of Brotherhood, and I'll just do the chorus.
Sure.
Angiphili Maungekho, Angiphili Maungekho. Oh, 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 oh. Angiphili Maungekho, Angiphili Maungekho. Oh, 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 oh. Ooh, oh, 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 oh. Ooh, oh, 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 oh. Inkanyezi phela umlilo, isomiso sifikile, izinkomo ziphelile, solokhu wahamba.
Boom, boom, ladies and gentlemen, that was Sabelo, and not only does he do property, he also does music. And I've never had anyone on this channel here who is a musician. And to your success, brother, thanks a lot for gracing us with your time and the music. It touched my soul, man. It touched my soul.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for the discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome stuff. You heard this story. If you got any comments, want to buy Sabelo's music, in the comments below. But don't forget, there's plenty of other videos like this one. Cheers.